When it comes to hard Pokemon games, basically everyone turns to ROM hacks, and for good reason. Even when it comes to the hardest games in the series, they aren't that hard at all. Even Ultra Sun and Moon barely reach a 2.5 out of 10 on the difficulty scale. So we turn to ROM hacks, like Radical Red, which ranges from the 4 out of 10 rule set I had during my first run to the 9 out of 10 difficulty of Hardcore mode. Renegade Platinum, which as I mentioned before hit 6.5 out of 10. Even Run and Bun, and nobody should be surprised that this is the 10 out of 10 end of the scale. The next ROM hack on my hit list is Vintage White, but I thought I'd like a bit of a break first. So, instead of going upwards in terms of difficulty, I decided I'd go sideways and check out some fangames. When it comes to the popularity of fangames in the hardcore Nuzlocke community, one stands above the rest: Pokemon Unbound. But that's a bit too hard for me right now, and there's already a very well edited run of Unbound by Steph and Sunny on YouTube. So let's look elsewhere. I could try Insurgents. Nah, I might get to it later, but Insurgents doesn't interest me and I couldn't do anything better than Alpharad. I could do Infinite Fusion and support the stealing of art from many different sources and the use of generative AI, but I'm a regular person, so I'm leaving Infinite Fusion to die. What about a story I can have actual fun with? 18 gym badges? Insanely complicated field effects that I can puzzle my way through to my heart's content? Yeah, I'll try it out. Pokemon Reborn is a project by Amethyst, Liddell, sorry if I'm mispronouncing any names, and many others that started as an online Pokemon League featuring characters played by her and others, and has blossomed into a massive fan Pokemon project with a gigantic map, 18 gym leaders, custom music from several sources including the incomparable Glitch City, and what was most interesting to me, 37 custom field effects, each with a pretty big list of changes to battle conditions. As my break between Renegade Platinum and Vintage White, I'll be attempting a hardcore Nuzlocke of this game. To review the rules, I can only catch the first Pokemon I encounter per area, fainting is permanent, nicknames are forced, set mode is turned on, level caps are in play, and bag items are banned when in battle. With that said, it's time to... Wait. What's going on? This can't be Sin again. What's happening? In part 1 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I almost die in a train crash that actually kills the other 5 potential player characters, all of which have canonical full names except Decibel. I myself am playing as Vero Espenson, who after the train crash has bonked his head so hard that he's insisting everyone call him Galaxy. I meet Amethyst Liddell, the creator, self-insert, and manager of the Reborn League, who's surprisingly not obnoxious for a self-insert at first glance, having a distant presence at most. I also meet Julia Wild, a very pyrotechnic cheer captain and the first gym leader I'll be facing. Making my way to Grand Hall, I'm given the opportunity to choose any starter from the first 7 generations, as well as Eevee, Vulpix, and Porygon if I want to. Out of the many options, I picked Charmander because Red here is Elite Four viable, and the only other place I can get him is something I want to roll another encounter table in. I could have taken Mudkip to get Marshtomp for the first gym leader, but we'll get to that in a bit. Heading back downstairs, I'm ambushed by the second of my 3 rivals, Kane LaRue, a poison-type specialist who probably wants to get into a toxic relationship with me. I don't like him that much. After winning the fight, the first rival reintroduces herself, Victoria Marlowe, a fighting-type specialist and student of Academy I'll hopefully visit soon. I like her a lot more. After finding out that I'm a Steel Water type, I catch Eggplant the Gulpin, Toby Montgomery the Pachirisu, Raymond Bryce the Trubbish, making my Gulpin a significantly worse encounter, Crystal the Budew, and Black the Poochyena. I grind Budew's level enough for him to learn Mega Drain and promptly challenge the third and final rival, Fern Sevilla, a chronic narcissist who will not admit his team is terrible and whose Sandile hits 4 of my 6 team members for super effective damage. I don't like him at all. With Fern defeated, I'm introduced to the evil team for this game, Team Meteor, whose main goal is to bust open Reborn City to reveal what it was built on top of. We also meet Florinius Sevilla, Fern's sister, and another gym leader who probably speaks in the same voice as V1 Ultra Kill. I like her a lot more than Fern. Infiltrating the first of many of Team Meteor's facilities, we're introduced to 4 of the more important members, as well as the first of 37 field effects. These all affect battles pretty significantly, and here we're dealing with the Factory field, which boosts electric-type moves, buffs Steelworker, Download, Technician, and Galvanize, makes Gear Grind incredibly broken, and turns Nature Power into it. Anyway, back to the notable Team Meteor characters. First is Ace Featherstone, who I love. After tearing my way through Meteor Grunts with Fern's help and finding some lore, the other 3 are introduced all at once. Andrew, Aster, Grafmiker, Caitlin, Eclipse, Fisher, and Paul Clark. I'm serious, his name is actually Paul Clark. I am not joking, it's actually Paul Clark! After accidentally dodging some crits against Aster and Eclipse, Julia blows the facility up, leaving us no choice but to visit her gym to force her to pay for repairs. Now, I have Poochyena. At this point of progression, I could level him to level 20, have him evolve, and sweep the entire fight with Moxie. That's what the only full Nuzlocke of this game on YouTube did, shout out Sybinn. However, I'm playing with hardcore Nuzlocke rules, meaning I can't overlevel the next gym leader's ace. That's Julia's level 15 Electro, meaning that I can't even get Mightyena. Or Marshtomp, which is the reason I didn't pick Mudkip. In fact, and this is intentional, there aren't any ground types available before the first gym at all, apart from Marshtomp and Sandcloak Wormadam. The developers realized that having an easily available ground type before this gym would tip the scales in the early encounter tables and decrease the value of its competitors. With that said, I question whether they remember that Pachirisu can have Volt Absorb. This fight does have measures to deal with Pachirisu, and that's why I'm leading with Ray. He sets up 2 layers of Toxic Spike successfully, then tags out in favor of Toby, who mine can only hit with Quick Attack. After using Volt Absorb pivoting to bring Toby up to full health, I take the free kill baiting in a Lowland Geodude. Electric Terrain's many additional effects in this game include enhancing Galvanize, but that doesn't matter, since Crystal one-taps the rock with Mega Drain. Pachirisu takes out Oricorio, clearing the way for Julia to send in the Boomies, the only Pokemon she has that can remotely threaten Toby, her Sonic Boom, Voltorb, and Electrode. I have no way to 1v1 them with any Pokemon on my team, meaning that my only solution was to pivot for my life, letting the poison from Toxic Spikes gradually wear them down, until Julia is left with Plusle. Plusle can only hit Toby with Quick Attack, so there's nothing stopping me from sending Julia to community service. In Part 2 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I enter Obsidian Ward and find out that rampant plants have destroyed much of what remains. In search of the cut HM required to enter, I head to the Ward Southern section where I catch Strawberry the Hoppip. From there, I go through the slums where my first challenge is Victoria, who isn't much of a challenge at all. I leave Victoria alone while she beats up and possibly kills this guy, continuing on to my next challenge, 3 Scraggies and an illegal Scrafty. Here, I take advantage of one of Pokemon Reborn's additions, Common Candies, allowing me to level down. The level cap for this split is 24, matching the next gym's highest level. However, the game will let me level up to 25. My solution to this? Buying a lot of Common Candies to consistently keep my team at level 23 or 24. This means I'm very overleveled for the battle with the Pokemon gang and easily win by pivoting between fighting the Dark Resist on Scrafty. I'm rewarded with an egg, and it ends up hatching into Midnight the Duckload in the Coral Pokemon Center, which as it turns out is a unique encounter location. With a new ward to explore, I wander for a bit before finding the holder of the Cut HM I'm looking for. A Maria Fiore, who... Kane adds a Popplio to his team and then he fights me and then he loses. With the Cut HM, I make my way back to Obsidian Ward and enter the overgrown Obsidian Forest Park, where I can't see much because it's nighttime in real life. Noting that this is a unique area separate from Obsidian Ward, I decide to Repel Manipulate at level 17 to increase my chances in encountering Bonsly, but can't be disappointed with Peach the Baniri. Moving further in, we see Victoria, one of 4 people who entered the forest, being captured by Meteor Agent Borealis, who we've seen before. At the very back end of the forest, we find the source of all these problems, a mechanized and mutated Tangrowth that has captured my other 2 companions, Florenia and Amaria. It is guarded by Meteor Admin Zell, who is actually 3 people in one body, which strikes me as quite similar to Vincent Adult Man. This Tangrowth is a grass poison type with a BST of 610 and over 2/3 of that BST in her bulk. However, this is the exact reason why I picked up Gulpin. With his resistance to all of Tangrowth's moves, Eggplant can debuff her with Acid Spray, chip with Sludge, and hand it off to Raymond, who finishes off the first of many Pulse Pokemon. With Obsidian Ward's encounter area open for business, I Repel Manipulate at level 17 again and get exactly who I'm looking for, Lori the Bonsly. Although she might not look like it, Lori is vital for this run's chances of succeeding. She's also my first normal resist, so that's something. Before the next gym leader, Florinia, there's a few encounters I can grab. From Coral Ward, I can now get Julie the Happini. From Onyx Ward, I get another egg and use another unique encounter location, this time Onyx Stairway, to get myself Cyan the Seal, which I can't be disappointed by because she comes equipped with Headbutt. This will be important in a bit. After demolishing Fern again, I catch Lime the Bellsprout, Laura the Glameow, and Dark Orange the Pidove. For my final Florinia split encounter, I wait 3 days in real life to catch a Zangoose, who can only be found in a certain alleyway on Mondays at night. Unfortunately, this Zangoose is level 30 and so I cannot use it yet. Florinia's team is the first team in the game to use Reborn's field effects in some really creative ways. She specializes in grass types, and her fight takes place on a desert field. At first glance, there's barely any synergy here, but the desert field turns nature power into Sand Tomb, and 2/3 of her team have the move. My poison types, of which I have a lot, are in serious danger of being trapped and killed by Sand Tomb, which even has boosted power in the desert field. Florinia's Ferroseed is also holding a Telluric Seed, which works like vanilla terrain seeds, but with much more complex effects. In this case, Ferroseed will get +1 in both defenses and speed, but be trapped by Sand Tomb for 4 turns as a consequence. My team ends up being 3 poison types, both of my flying types, and my starter and designated Ferroseed answer, Red. Tranquil leads off in 2 shots Maractus, though Florinia gets a spike up. Cradily is Florinia's ace and an absolute monster, taking every attack I can possibly throw at her while hitting surprisingly hard with Stab Smackdown. I first send in Gulpin, who chips and debuffs her with Acid Spray, then pivot to Trubbish, who does the same thing but can't finish the kill before being put in range of Smackdown. My plan's already off the rails and I'm forced to risk some crits with Lime, who's thankfully able to finish off Cradily. Ferroseed is next, and Red 2 shots through the boosted defense with Ember, but with over half my team in critical health, my plan has gone off the rails and I'm officially steering. Lime was my planned answer to 2 of Florinia's remaining 3 bonds. I am forced to send in Dark Orange and pray that she can get something done, and she does, chipping Continate, eventually killing both Cacturne and Breloom. Florinia has been beaten, and the rest of this run will be carried on the back of this bird that did what nobody else could. Unfortunately, Dark Orange will most likely be sacrificed in a future fight as I am about to catch a bigger bird. In Part 3 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I am finally freed from the shackles of XP management, as the next gym leader's highest level coincides with the highest level the game allows me to reach, level 35. After grinding my entire team to level 35 off camera, I encounter this quote-unquote doctor who has committed and will commit so many atrocities over the course of this game that the only punishment I can give him is to blacklist him from history. As such, I will exclusively refer to him as Wakefield. Jasper Ward is my next destination where I meet two important characters. Cory Molinar, an overprotective father and doctor who we've seen helping citizens twice before, and his daughter Heather, a free-spirited girl who we'll see more of soon. I use my overleveled Zangoose to tear through random trainers, then catch Yellow the Emolga and Indigo the Beedrill. An egg I find soon after hatches into Dark Gray the Giraffe Rig. Heather and I meet up near a target in Malchus Forest Park, and she sends me to the basement of the building, where I meet Mitaka Alcantara, who tries to kill me with a 4v1. Heather shows up with her Salamence to lower those odds to a 1v1, and Taka challenges me. This fight can be deadly if it catches you off guard, as the Pulse Tangrowth Taka uses has Arena Trap to forcibly remove the Rock or Electric type you want to use against his Chatot. However, I have Yellow, who sweeps the entire fight with boosted acrobatics. Beating this fight unlocks access to a new floor of the department store, and with it, infinite eject buttons. Before the third gym. Out of 18. I enter Barrel Ward and catch Shadow the Drifloon. Very slowly making my way through Rhodocron Jungle, I am briefly introduced to two incredibly important characters. Phoenix Alcantara, codenamed Solaris, the leader of Team Meteor. And Lynn, the reason I'm playing this game. One more important character enters the chat as I make my way underground and then back to the Jungle Service, where I encounter the best Pokemon in the entire game, and I say this knowing that I already have Happiny in my box. If you know Nuzlocke content, you know exactly where this is going, and I think it's only fitting that he's named after my personal main character. Purple the Tailo has arrived, coming with some great IVs. I then catch Brown the Barboach in the Underroute. With all my encounters out of the way, I charge headfirst into the designated boss fight area and find 4 high-ranking members of Team Meteor. They each pair off with one of my companions, Borealis with Amaria, Taka with Fern, and Zell with Kane. Heather shows up to seriously tip the scales in our favor, but unfortunately has to square off with Lynn. That leaves me to deal with Ace, who leads with Tangrowth holding a Telluric Seed to activate Spiky Shield for 1 turn. I counter this by burning one of my own Telluric Seeds on Yellow, so I have boosted acrobatics for the rest of the battle. Yellow kills Baltoy in the switch out, then tanks Zorua, then Roselia, then metaphorically passes the baton to Midnight on Braixen. This leaves my entire team to handle the final Pulse Tangrowth, who this time is Rock-type and has growth with double effectiveness on this field, stamina, and stored power. I use Clear Smog from Raymond to keep her stat boost in check, but have to switch out before long. I use all of my resources to gradually chip Tangrowth down, accidentally risk a crit on Midnight, and get out deathless. Lynn overpowers Heather, Borealis steps in to defend her, and then Amaria steps in to defend Borealis. After Borealis and I escape the collapsing jungle, 4 police officers I rescued earlier unmask Borealis as Cory, a plot twist that at least doesn't think it's more clever than it is, and can be reasonably predicted based on Borealis' past actions. Regardless, I am forced to confront Cory, but not before I catch Silver.exe the Pineco in Barrel Cemetery. I talk with Cory in a secret room where he requests a battle with me. In his former gym arena, he says that Cory Molinar and Agent Borealis have contradictory obligations regarding what to do in this situation, and asks me to kill one persona for good. And so, I challenge Agent Borealis. Borealis leads with Focus Sash Skrillp, and I break the sash. From there, Swallout eventually gets ejected, bringing in the best Pokemon in the game, who promptly gets poisoned by the corrosive mist in the air. As you all should know, this seals Borealis' fate. Purple gets 4 kills in a row, but the field also boosts the effectiveness of Skuntank's Aftermath, so I can't get a 5th kill. I use most of my team to chip down Skuntank, getting the kill with Yellow. Lauren and Cyan take out his Nidorina, winning me the battle and vanquishing Agent Borealis. Heather and Cory argue one more time, and Heather leaves. Cory's response is to head to Barrel Bridge and... In Part 4 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I start by catching all of the Gothita, Maroon the Growlithe, and Vermilion the Togepi. I go to North Obsidia Ward and pick up the Protectium, then head west to Lapis. Near Cory, I meet Cal Whitaker, who swears a lot, and Shelly Citra, the next gym leader I'll be fighting, and someone who must be protected at all costs. Aster and Eclipse point me to the bomb site in North Obsidia, but beforehand I solve a puzzle and grab Pink the Spritzy. Back in North Obsidia, Kane distracts an officer by doing what he does best, letting me enter the caverns underneath the Grand Stairway. I catch Tan the Graveler in the caverns, then beat up everyone there with my Whiscash. I have a quick chat with Solaris about his ultimate motivation, unearthing what lies behind these doors underneath Reborn City, and do the exact same thing to Aster and Eclipse with some help from Victoria. After preparing my team, I'm faced with an optional back-to-back fight with Victoria and Fern. I, of course, accept because I'm stupid. Yellow kills Pancham, Brown kills Pikachu and chains that into killing Torracat, and Yellow tags back in to handle Kirlia. On the second fight, which I'm thankfully healed for, Fern constantly switches between Rhyhorn and Dartrix, but I chip his team faster than he can chip mine. Rhyhorn eventually goes down, and I use eject buttons to pip through Roserade and Krokorok. The next thing I do is charge headfirst into the Lapis Gym and get jump-scared by a battle with Cal, who sets up Rainbow Field by activating Drought when rain's up. My lead's in danger of being killed with a boosted Aurora Beam, but Brown comes in absolutely clutch by killing Torkoal, Magmortar, and Charmeleon back-to-back-to-back. And then, Lori comes in clutch by dodging Inferno from Houndoom and hitting back-to-back Rock Slides to secure the deathless victory. I resolve to not make any more reckless decisions from this point onwards and promptly join a gang. This is actually required to finish the game, and I choose Magma Gang over Aqua Gang for the better rewards and less opportunity cost. I sweep the cards of my water types and sweep everyone else with pre-burn Swellow. Orange the Buizel is my reward for this, and I get a second reward by chasing Corey over Reborn City, ending up in North Obsidia Ward where I unmask Onyx the Zorua. This brings me to Shelly, the first double battle gym leader in this game, coming at me with a team of bug types with moves boosted by both the forest field this battle takes place in, and by the rain her prankster Iliumai's lead will set up if she doesn't see a kill. However, she was not fully prepared for EV-trained Swellow and Zangoose. I take the third badge and am promptly unable to stop Wakefield from kidnapping yet another child. In part 5 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I start by sweeping a Pokemon Swarm with Magenta. This will be a recurring theme. This unlocks a new floor of the department store, which in turn gives me full control over my Pokemon's EVs. With my team prepared, I head into Wakefield's orphanage, witness him torturing yet another child, and meet the twins. Noelle, who I'll be fighting soon, and Anna, who's the reason I'm here. I also meet Charlotte Belrose, a very rude firebug who I can definitely keep up with. Despite Kane's best efforts to throw in a Shadow Tag why not, Kane actually comes in clutch by putting Aromatisse to sleep and saving Onyx's life. From there, I team up with Shelly, and Purple and Heather basically solo sweep every orphanage worker in the place. We successfully spring Heather, but Wakefield catches me on the way out for a battle. Unfortunately for Wakefield, his team wasn't prepared for a fully EV-trained and pre-poisoned Magenta, who ends the battle in 5 turns. Before progressing the story, I tackle some side objectives. First, I chase the Aqua Gang out of their hideout in Lapis Ward by sweeping Archer with Magenta, getting Lavender the Houndour as a reward. Then, I fight a computer virus in a peculiar field effect, that virus being Silver the Porygon. Then, I smash a bunch of rocks in a bunch of different places, kill 3 overleveled Pangoros with counters from Lori, and get Gold the Scraggy as my reward here. Then, I head into the underground railnet, bust through some walls like the Kool-Aid Man, and finally headbutt a pole to get an encounter I could have taken before the first gym badge. The wait is worth it though, as I'm rewarded with Revenir the Aeron. Then, I visit Barrel Cave, wander around in the dark for a bit, and take Corey's Nidorina with me, who I decide to call Sky. My final 2 encounters of the split are the underwhelming Dark Green the Spearow, and the pleasant surprise that is Samurai the Clink. The latter is on the way to my next story destination, Yuffie Middle Ward, a ghost who is a man despite what Wakefield would have you believe. Fighting him is the only way for the kids who escape Wakefield's torture house to get anywhere fast, so I like to sweep him with Zangoose, though there are some complications. First up is Doublade, and I use an eject button to swap from Silver.exe into Silver.exe, who 2-shots with Night Slash. Next up is the biggest threat of the fight, Mimikyu. I use Clear Smog for my newly evolved Raymond to keep Mimikyu in check, then try to finish her off with Silver.exe, but Shade switches to Rotom. Thankfully, that seals his fate, as after a pivot through eject button Lori, Magenta sweeps the rest of the fight by abusing Shade's own field effect, Short Circuit Field, to boost his Night Slashes. After the fight, power is restored to the elevator the kids wanted to use, but Paul Clark crashes the party and captures everyone but Kane. Looks like it's time for a rescue mission, but not before Lynn has the time of her life monologuing to Paul. Not even kidding, she's having a blast doing this. In part 6 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I am faced with quite the challenge, trying to make the split interesting. None of the fights during Kiki Split posed any problems to Zangoose, Swellow, and the rest of my team. To rectify this, I decide to focus on the story. Kane meets back up with me, Amaria, and Ace, who it seems has defected from Team Meteor after being fired. They help the 3 of us decode the information Kane got out with, leading us to temporarily postpone a rescue mission in favor of shutting down more pulse machines. The first of these is in Peridot Ward, but I catch Menace the Murkrow, Crimson the Swirlix, and Lily the Bonesweet beforehand. The latter requiring me to defeat a level 45 Serena I could have fought before the second gym. Anyway, with the side quests out of the way, I get to choose a mid for Ace to give me and choose Jolly. I hope we find out why. Then, Amaria and I enter the factory from the top floor and start to work our way downwards. Unfortunately, Ace triple crosses us and sends me to a jail cell with a bunch of stolen Pokemon. One puzzle later, I have Dark Purple the Ditto in my box, and the guard watching me in a cage. Magenta and Brown tear their way through every Team Meteor member in my way, and I stumble into Zell and Solaris. They reveal that they're polluting the water with their pulse smoke and are about to kill me when Umbria shows up to save my butt. Her and Solaris square off, leaving me to tackle the pulse once again. 4 facade clicks later, and Zell is defeated, though Solaris Tyranitar hits Umbria pretty hard on the way out. Hard being the operative word, judging by what Umbria promptly says regarding her girlfriend. My next destination is Apophil Academy, where the second pulse target is located. Along the way, I get Blue the Pyukumuku, Grace the Meditite, and Isis the Stunfisk. Upon arriving at the Academy, where I've been told to get the Strength HM, I am asked to defeat either Victoria or Cal to prove myself worthy of challenging Sensei Kiki Argyle, who's about to die from a terminal illness. Of course, this means I challenge both. Victoria gets swept by Zangoose. As for Cal, I needed to lead pre-burned max attack Facade Roserade to hopefully not activate a hard switch from his lead Barbaracle and Oko. Then, the reason why I couldn't sweep with Zangoose actually comes into play, Flame Charge Typhlosion. Zangoose can't outspeed Typhlosion at +1, but Swellow certainly can. Finally, Kiki. For this fight, I lead with Emolga holding a Telluric Seed. This is instantly consumed and applies Focus Energy to Yellow. On the Ashen Beach field this takes place in, Focus Energy raises critical hit chances by 3 stages instead of 2. What this means is that Emolga is guaranteed to crit and can outspeed at Oko 5 of Kiki's 6 team members. The only 2 complications are Sucker Punch Toxicroak, and the exception, Lucario. I do only die to 2 crits, and I had a backup line in case Lucario got the first crit, but Kiki misses her chance to stop her team from getting swept by an Emolga. This humiliates her so much that she promptly collapses. In Part 7 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I head to Azurine Island and catch Jason the Fungus. The next boss fight is the first actually challenging fight with Asteroid Eclipse, mainly because of the field effect, Swamp Field. This has a ton of effects, but the most important one is that it lowers the speed of all grounded Pokemon by 1 stage every turn. Thankfully, their team is very weak to water, so I lead with Midnight and Air Balloon Brown. It takes some careful switches, and the Air Balloon popped halfway through the fight, but I get out deathless. Next up is a rematch with Taka. Zangoose takes out the front half of the fight while Swellow cleans up the rear. With Kane rescued, the next destination is Pyrus Mountain, where I catch Flash the Sock with help from Victoria's Incineroar. That would have been an insane pull for this next boss fight, but I had the right tool in my box already. At the mountain summit, Solaris threatens to blow up Apophil Academy with a pulse Camerupt, and confidently states that he only needs 1 Pokemon to kill me. Given that this Pokemon is a level 75 Garchomp, he'd have some merit. If I wasn't leading with sturdy counter Sudowoodo, holding protective pads to bypass Ruffskin. Nevertheless, this is far from a victory, as Cal, revealed to be working for Team Meteor, blocks Kiki's Medicham from destroying the Pulse Machine, and tosses that Medicham into the lava. Solaris follows up by killing Kiki. On to Bixbijan Wasteland. The Wasteland has no trainers in it, so the path to another confrontation with Ace is clear. Zangoose, as always, clears the first half of the fight, though I'm disappointed to waste a Dark Gem and Mismagius rather than the intended Bronzong, who ends up coming in next. I use multiple eject buttons to get Bronzong into killing range from Zangoose. This ends up bringing out the one remaining threat Ace has, Honchkrow. On this, I use another eject button to get Purple in, and Purple cleans up the rest of the fight easily. Next up is Fern, and I actually bring back my Facade Rosary lead against Rhydon. I once again ejected a Zangoose to pick up a kill. My new Arcanine beats Dekadui, and I use some more eject buttons to let Zangoose sweep the remainder of the fight. I could immediately challenge the next gym, but I instead explore the Bixbijan tunnels, catching Lifeform 73 the Solosis and Shatter the Spiritomb on the way to my next destination. This fight is optional, but as you've seen, nothing is really optional when it comes to this particular run. And so, I lead with my 2 aces against Mr. Bigglesworth. Magenta and Purple each kill lead Trubbish with a move that isn't Facade, because they're both holding normal gems to punch through Mr. Bigglesworth's massive HP bar. This fight was completely unnecessary, but I'm so glad I did it. At least I'll get unlimited gems during the next split. Speaking of which, the only thing standing between me and that split is the next gym leader, Aya LaRue, Kane's sister, who got slapped with the position of gym leader after Kane ran away from home and promptly had to fight not quite the most immoral character in the game, that's Wakefield, but certainly the biggest asshole. Unfortunately for her, I'm not going to be that much of a step up. I lead with Aromatisse and Fortress. One of the Wasteland's effects is reworking entry hazards to be consumed and deal damage at the end of the turn they're used. I don't want this, so I use Misty Terrain to override the field and let me set up spikes with Fortress. Spread Sludge Wave, even from Toxapex with the Merciless ability that's always active on Wasteland, can't really do that much damage to Kepia Berry Aromatisse, and I'm perfectly positioned for turn 2. Aromatisse switches into Eject Button Sudowoodo to bring Swellow in, while Fortress uses Ally Switch, which the Reborn devs made a curious decision with. They turned it into Gen 8 Teleport. My 2 aces are in, and the fight is over 3 turns later. The spikes broke Salazzle's Focus Sash and chipped Drapion into kill range from Zangoose. At this point, the easy part of the game is over. I can no longer simply click Facade to sweep major boss fights. With that said, I still have a great box as I finally move to rescue the kids from Wakefield and Team Meteor. In Part 8 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I begin by sweeping Kane with Zangoose again, this time with an assist from my starter. On a recommendation from Nathan MLS, I decide to forego the guaranteed Squirtle I can get in Bixbijan Wasteland at this point in favor of rolling the grass table. And I get rewarded. With Overlord the Venipede. Given that the easy part of the game's over, this will be a valuable tool going forward to facilitate strategies that might be considered a bit less than honorable. With these tools in my box, I decide to completely ignore them for now in favor of a nice helping of Zangoose. With Kane's help, I traverse my way through Urayu Power Plant, eventually having to choose between fighting Wakefield and fighting Paul Clark, and I pick the latter. The team I end up bringing was for sure ill-prepared, but the absolute carries that are Zangoose, Whiscash, and having a tag partner get me through the fight without much trouble. With Paul defeated, the kids have finally been rescued and we head to the underground rail net. On the way to our next destination that involves a train crash and teleporting shenanigans, I catch White the Kecleon and Sid the Eevee. Some story stuff happens that isn't that important for now, but I meet 4 characters in the process. Laura Belrose, who's been through a lot, the mother-daughter duo of Sarah and Bennett McLean, who are a former model and a hardcore simp respectively, and Elias Hazel, a pretty horrible father, but at least he isn't transphobic like Wakefield is. Regardless, there's a ton of encounters for me to get. I catch ODF the Swablu, Olivia the Onyx, a full 7 splits after I should have gotten an Onyx, a very lucky Loftus that I promptly trade for a Darumaka, Amy the Vanillite, and Mauve the Shieldon. With these encounters out of the way, 2 boss fights remain in this split. First up is Bennett, who brings a team perfectly geared to take advantage of the field effect for this gym, Mirror Field. Bennett's held items and abilities increases Pokemon's accuracy and evasion, which in turn makes them more likely to crit on this field. Unfortunately, another effect of Mirror Field is that single-target special moves always hit Pokemon with boosted evasion, and that includes Arcanine's Flamethrower, which sweeps the entirety of this fight. As for Sarah herself, the fight starts off according to plan, with Maroon getting a kill off rip and baiting in Lapras as expected. However, things go off the rails when I realize I made a critical mistake. I didn't EV train Yellow in special attack. My plan was for Yellow to 3-shot Lapras with Volt Switch, but after the second one, I realized that's not on the table and activate my backup line, Baton passing a speed boost to Arcanine early. Maroon can easily take a Surf, but what Maroon can't easily deal with is an Ice Beam Freeze. I need Charcoal to hit some damage ranges in this fight, even with max investment, but I do have one more out. Hit Flare Blitz through Lapras' boosted evasion. Me being as lucky as I was during the split, I'm never punished, and Arcanine with +1 speed outspeeds and 1-hit KOs everything left on Sarah's team with Flamethrower. After this fight that should have ended in disaster, Elias indoctrinates Bennett into his cult, and I head back toward the Belrose Manse for my next gym battle. In Part 9 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, there are no new encounters because my opportunity to challenge Noelle is right now. I should note though, that I now have access to unlimited gems, which is an insane power boost to my team that I will be abusing. Anyway, my fight with Noelle is interrupted by a new character, Saphira Belrose, Charlotte and Laura's older sister who has also been through a lot, and who informs us that Paul, Clark, and Wakefield are invading the house. We all defend the house and I'm forced to fight Wakefield again, but he just gets swept by Zangoose. I now have to choose between blocking off Paul and blocking off Wakefield, and I choose the latter, leading to Saphira being kidnapped. Since I discovered the location of Team Meteor's base off-camera during the last part, I know exactly where to head. Zangoose one-shots literally everything on the opposing teams that doesn't resist normal, and we make it to Pulse Abra, who teleports me to the Tanzan Depths. Here, Laura tells me some interesting things about Lynn, and then I have to fight a Gargantuan Steelix. Thankfully, this Steelix is low enough HP to get countered. My next obstacle, though, won't be countered, and that's the Pulse Abra. This thing is basically a cross between Mega Alakazam and Jirachi with a base special attack of Mega Mewtwo Y, though its moveset of 3 iterations of Hyper Beam and Dark Pulse means that I can certainly handle it. I bait Hyper Beam into one of my eject button users, then use the recharge turn to endeavor to 1 HP with Swellow. Unfortunately, I forgot to keep Quick Attack on Swellow, but one more eject button gives me my choice of priority move to finish off Abra, and I choose my under-leveled Floatzel. Yay. Lynn shows up, exercises an unbelievably impressive amount of restraint by not killing Wakefield right then and there, and takes out the Steelix we just beat, now commanded by Saphira. I defenestrate before I get demolished by her. Trust me when I say this, I'm nowhere near ready to fight Lynn. With everything out of the way, I can finally challenge Noelle. His normal type specialty is complemented well by his ace, Clefable. With that said, his team's pretty weak to Facade Spam, with a couple of exceptions. After EV training my team, I head in and immediately nuke the King's Rock Chinchino. Next is Beware, who gets handled by Arcanine. I use Ally Switch Chansey to pivot on Porygon Z, bring in Zangoose, and click Facade. That had only 5 rolls to kill. Should have equipped Fighting Gem, huh? Anyway, Swellow gets beaten by the Mirror Match, Garbodor slowly chips Clefable down with Clear Smog and Sludge Bomb, and Chansey tags back in to give Zangoose the free switch he needs to finish off the fight. Afterwards, a non-Julia-induced explosion goes off at her previous battleground at Tanzan Mountain, so it's time to head back there. In Part 10 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, we meet up with Saphira, who thankfully survived her battle with Lynn. She gives us some MacGuffins and sends us on the way to our next destination. As it turns out, this is where, after all this time, we finally reach Route 1. And are promptly ambushed by Fern, who gets demolished as per usual, featuring the return of Facade Roserade. I'll spare you the details of how I got through Route 1, just know that it involved a lot of bull and catching Fury the Deerling. Now, my next battle with Kane is an initiation to one of the most fiendishly complicated field effects in the entire game, Chessboard. Before that though, I'm introduced to 3 more characters, Luna Hazel, an upcoming gym leader and kind Hergirl who is a girl, lining up with what Elias would have you believe, Radamus Venhanen, who is the reason I'm here, and Gossip Gardevoir, who defies explanation. After all this time, I finally suffered my first death. Rest well, Dark Green, should have been Heliolisk. Anyway, Gardevoir gets kidnapped by Elias, and everyone besides Luna goes off to rescue her. Radamus earns my respect by keeping up with Kane's flirting, and the Baltoy I encounter in Citea's Stripe blows up in my face. We also meet Adrian Flores, who I will be referring to with they-them pronouns because I have problems pronouncing the alternative. From there, I'd like to study the upcoming choice the player must face, whether to trust Elias or Radamus. Liddell has expressed dissatisfaction with how this scene was written, and I can see where she's coming from. The entirety of the tension in the scene stems from Radamus' unwillingness to reveal that this Gardevoir is actually a Ditto. On the one hand, this is a choice that has major implications for the post-game route, and new players make it with incomplete information. On the other hand, there's no clear right answer here based on that information, since Elias has shown himself to be less than trustworthy himself. It is in character for Radamus at least, since he's in full control of the situation. Personally, I don't hate this choice, even if I knew what choice I'd be making from the beginning. Also, the entire time we've been arguing, I'm pretty sure someone on the other side of that door has been listening with her ear pressed to it and having the time of her life. Anyway, I side with Radamus and Metal Burst L's Ditto. With him taken care of, I head back through Citea's Stray and finally begin the journey to Venhanen Castle. Once again, I'll skip the absurd amount of bull and bugs I went through to get my Aventurine Woods encounters, Rose the Dewpider and Static the Passimian. I will, however, do a detailed breakdown of the most meticulously planned gym leader fight so far, Radamus, on the previously mentioned chessboard field. Our leads each receive the role of pawn and gain a free Focus Sash. This is problematic since I do not want Radimus to set up Trick Room with either of his leads. I need to break both of their sashes. I start by Volt Switching and taunting Malamar as he Molga baits a kill from Reuniclus into an eject button and Malamar fails a Trick Room. Then I taunt Reuniclus this time and Sucker Punch Malamar, but I'm severely punished for equipping the wrong gem on Emolga, and Malamar stays alive to hit a Rock Slide, which thankfully doesn't crit Menace. On turn 3, Menace finishes off Malamar, giving me the Moxie boost I need to sweep the fight. Radimus had hard switched out Reuniclus in favor of Metagross. However, as it turns out, this is checkmate. Metagross has received the role of King, giving all of its moves increased priority. However, this is completely shut down by the Pokemon I bring in next, Lily the Serena, whose Queenly Majesty ability prevents Metagross from doing anything whatsoever for the rest of the battle. Lily and Menace proceed to sweep the entire left side of the board while Radimus tries desperately to salvage his position, but it's not enough. Checkmate. Holy hell. Oh wait, the lights went off. In part 11 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I accomplished the impossible and go outside in my search for Luna. My first destination in this endeavor is the Underworld of Lapis Ward on 7th Street. After beating up the local residents and buying a lot of explosives, I stumble upon someone selling the Pokemon I was trapped with a couple chapters ago in the Black Steam Factory. I have my pick of which one I want to take, which in my case is hardly a choice at all. It's Cyndaquil. It's always been Cyndaquil. I chase Bennett around in hopes that his absurd level of Simpery finds his way to the nearest conventionally attractive female, but unfortunately I find my way to Elias's Colt instead. I get ambushed, spend an embarrassing amount of time in the stealth section, and get introduced to one of the most exploitable field effects in the entire game, Holyfield. Holyfield has an absurdly long list of effects, but the most important one by a wide margin is what happens with Nature Power. When Pixie Plate Roserade uses Nature Power, it turns into Fairy-type Judgment with an effective base power of 225. This is enough to easily outspeed and one-hit KO everything from any non-boss fight trainer, with the exception of this random Politoed for some reason. Anyway, the boss fight of this section isn't Elias, and it's not even Bennett, it's actually Ace, and they finally prepared themselves for Swellow by leading with Choice Scarf Alakazam. However, I've got a Bastion on that's ready to counter it. As soon as Bev gets Alakazam in range of Quick Attack, it's all over. Swellow outspeeds and kills everything else with Boosted Facade. Anyway, Radimus bails us out again and it's time to challenge Luna. But not before I correct a mistake I made earlier. I previously called Fern the biggest asshole in the entire game. That's because I forgot about Ignosia Crodberry. I'll leave my explanation of her character to that. A rematch with Aqua Mastermind Archer later, and Luna's in my sights. On my way through Iolia Valley's pretty complicated gym puzzle, I repel manipulate and get what I'm after, J. Bennett's Simpery has reached critical levels, so I'm forced to stop him. Swellow sweeps his entire team, hopefully preventing his Simpery from reaching bow levels, for now, and finally clearing the path to Dark Dreamer Luna. I must confess that I greatly underestimated the Dark Crystal Cavern field effect. The two most important effects of this field is that it buffs the defenses of Dark types by 50% and that it powers up Night Slash by the same amount. Thankfully, my Scrafty is so good into this fight that I judged that I could afford to play this fight slow and fully invest in bulk on most of my team. Mostly borrowing a line from Sybinn, I'm ready for just about anything Luna can throw at me. Olivia leads and sets up rocks on Bisharp, getting ejected into Typhlosion, who promptly kills with Eruption. This baits Tyranitar, who's Scrafty walls. Next up is Haunchcrow, and that's an easy 1v1 for Reveneer. Greymid comes back after a while to help with my only way through Cheshire, Toxic Stall. With Protects and switches to Gold, I'm able to take Umbreon down. Second to last is the White Rabbit, and I eject into Typhlosion, who's holding the Focus Sash for this moment right now. I'll let the rest of the fight play out from here. Nothing important happens immediately after Luna, but there's some more stuff I have to do before heading to Agate City, since I won't have access to Reborn City for the next 4 badges or so. In part 12 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, that stuff results in Aqua the Axew and Green the Chespin being hatched from eggs. Thanks for the help, Luna. My next destination is Agate City, where the guards are asleep. What happens next cannot be done justice with post-commentary. Aya and Hardy. This Saturday night, baby, I'd like to take you out. No one be nudge nudge wink wink. Okay, no, hold on. What did you just do with that giant mallet? You wanna find out, Winky Face? Like, really, where could that possibly have gone? There it is! He's checking me out. Aw, yeah. Please tell me I'm not this bad, Galaxy. Kane, you kind of are. Anyway, as I was saying, you gotta get out of here, Uwu. Acceptable alternate names include Terrra, Terraria, Terrra, Mega Terra, Super Elite Lion Tamer, and Queen of Booty. Am I allowed to be saying this? And I got some sweet, sweet words of sugar for you, baby. Oh yes, let me whisper you real close, like, get out of here! Exhibits A and C. There's an exhibit variant of delicious. What? Who said that? My god. Miss Mike. Home run! There's no hurry now, they're safe. I am not a clown, I am the entire circus. But mostly the lion timber. You know, I also tame Ciel, if you know what I mean. Winky Face. Let's go to work. So, Terra Pierce. I don't think there could be a better character for her to play off of than Kane. For what should be obvious reasons. Her seamless ability to parry his flirting made her kind of actually funny in her introduction. We'll see what I think of her later on in the game. Anyway, that was Terra Pierce. The Agate Circus will be my home base for the next 4 badges or so, and I take advantage of the opportunity to get Evil the Clefairy, who I hope will be incredibly important. I hope. I also tried Isis for Guardian the Vulpix, and promptly remember that I forgot to get my Onyx Arcade encounter, and won't be able to get it until I have beaten 4 more gym leaders. I make my way into the back room where Aya is, and meet a few gym leaders, namely Samson Alvarez and CL Featherstone. I've forgotten to mention Hardy Anderson before, but he's a gym leader and rockstar who I've enjoyed during his dialogue scenes, and who has unfortunately been subjected to a home run by Terra. I've got to find him, and List leads me through Route 2, where I catch Azul the Hawlucha. I ultimately end up at Fiore Mansion, where I'm reunited with 3 characters, Hardy, Amaria, and Titania Anderson. She's Hardy's sister and Amaria's girlfriend, and we've seen her before talking to a meteor grunt. She's sending them false information. The Taidouan we've seen mentioned twice before is someone else. Anyway, in order to fight the next gym leader, Samson, I've got to get past Grandmaster Anastasia, but with a line copied step by step from Sybinn, this fight's pretty easy. Sturdy eject button combined with guaranteed gut swallow is one hell of a drug, though we've reached the point where Zangoose isn't fast enough to keep up with opponents who've finally begun maximizing their speed, and Swellow sometimes isn't strong enough. For example, the next fight, Samson. This fight will wipe every blind Nuzlocke of the game that makes it this far. There is no way an unprepared team will ever be able to defeat his Hawlucha. I'd initially planned to sweep the fight with my own Hawlucha, but Azul doesn't have all the moves I need him to yet. Instead, I'm copying Sybinn again. I had all the tools in my box, so prepare yourself for quite the unusual sweep, working within the mechanics of Reborn rather than trying to circumvent them. It starts by setting up rocks on his lead Hariyama and ejecting out. The next step is Sturdy Carbink, who can set up Trick Room, but not just any Trick Room. Jay's holding the Amplifield rock, which extends the duration of Trick Room to 8 turns. Including the turn it's set and the turn taken to eject into Golem, that's 6 turns. That's exactly enough to kill Samson's entire team, but with what move? The answer is Nature Power, which in the Big Top Arena turns into 165 base power Acrobatics. Golem's also holding a Synthetic Seed, which boosts its attack by 1 stage on this field. Since Blaziken doesn't protect the first turn he's out, which I had a contingency for, Golem quite literally sweeps Samson's entire team. When it comes to the post-battle conversations, I'd like to mention that Terrra's significantly less funny when she isn't playing off of Kayn, at least for now. I did genuinely like seeing Kayn get one-upped by someone even more flirty, but she's worn out her welcome with the exception of Position 52, which keep in mind was a line said by Samson, not Terrra! In part 13 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I returned to the Fiore Mansion to pick up the Surf HM and get something far worse. The knowledge that I didn't need to write that anecdote about Titania passing Meteor false information in the last part. Titania just reveals that a lot easier than I expected she would. What's also revealed, though, is a pretty sad situation. Titania has no romantic feelings for Amaria, despite Titania's best attempts to give Amaria the support she desperately needed. The two of them argue about this for a while, until... After traversing another mountain, something pretty insane happens. I managed to get a lot more than the 9% encounter I was looking for. I got my first ever shiny, Violet the Gligar. Anyway, with the path to Labrador City blocked by a hunk of ice I think can make enough snow cones to feed 4,003 people, my only choice is to head through Route 3, where we're detoured by long-range artillery into my last battle with Aster and Eclipse, partnered with Aya. I lead Araquanid and give her the Jolly Mint to outspeed the duo's leads, but this nature means that Water Gem Surf is a range on Lunatone, a range that I barely miss. This allows Lunatone to set up Light Screen before going down. Thankfully, my carry for this fight, Chestnut, is now in position to start claiming kills on the entire right side of the field. Dragargle goes down, but so did Crocodile on the screens. Then... Alright, so I'm screwed. I planned for green to sweep Aster's entire backline. Now I've got two walls with no offensive presence, a Chestnut in the red, a Zangoose that can't do any damage, a severely hampered Araquanid, and a Haxorus that isn't EV trained. Time to get some stuff done. That was a nail-biter, but at least Eclipse finally does right by our convictions and disarms the artillery, aka Pulse Clobitzer, that had been hammering us. Unfortunately, Paul Clark shows up and literally burns away her soul. One more route later and I'm in Calcenon City, the site of my next gym badge. Before then though, there are a few story developments. Laura gets the news that her position in the Elite Four is being given to someone else who's pretty clearly Bennett. Then we find out that Fern's joined Team Meteor, confirming his status as the game's second biggest asshole. After that, I'm pressured into giving up my Ruby Ring by Team Meteor, and Charlotte shows up to ask me if I'd throw her to the dogs for the sake of the ring. You know, Charlotte, I've said this before, but I'm a fan of the way your character's been written. Fine, I'll play along. I played my part, so I watched Charlotte play hers. Then, we catch a break after the show, and now it's time for me to beat her team to smithereens. As with the last gym fight, I'm stealing a line from Sybinn. I don't know what to say here, these are 2 guaranteed encounters. Also, as with the last gym fight, this revolves around playing into Reborn's mechanics, rather than working against them. I lead with Haxorus and Nidoqueen, both holding a Terrain Seed, but not the Telluric Seed that activates on Superheated Field. Instead, both Protect. Typhlosion promptly uses Eruption, gets it blocked by Protect, and transforms the field into the Burning Field. This activates our held Elemental Seeds, giving us boosts to our attack, special attack, and speed, but trapping us in Fire Spin. Thankfully, Charlotte is not going to get off another move. Sky and Aqua proceed to outspit and 1-hit KO Charlotte's entire team. Volcarona lives a hit from either of her ground moves, but Smackdown also happens to be doubled in power on this field, killing Volcarona through the Chartiberry. With Dive in my toolkit, it's time to head towards what I will believe will be, and I can't believe I'm saying this about Pokemon Reborn, the first actually challenging fight of the game so far. In part 14 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I begin by forgetting to record my fight against the Pulse Avalugg that's blocking the way to Ametrine City. I countered it with Lauren. Anyway, we find out that Heather's been delivering food to the residents in Ametrine. We also find out how Zell came to exist. Lumina and Evelyn Sejaya, 2 sisters and former residents of Ametrine, are 2 of the 3. After making the prototype of Pulse in her desperation to cure a genetic illness, then being forced to work on the machine for Team Meteor, Eve tested the machine out on a Magneton. This caused it to evolve, and have the unintended consequence of causing the 3 consciousnesses in the room to fuse in a similar manner to how Magneton evolves into Magnezone. Immediately following this, we meet Blake Whitaker, Cal's brother and a gamer. As it turns out, Blake's locked Heather up in a mountain shack in an effort to starve the entire city on Solaris' orders. We obviously can't stand for any of that, so we find Heather. I'll stop being cynical for a second and admit that Heather finally being back to her old self after literally being silent since Wakefield tortured her really warmed my heart. Still, Blake's gotta go down, and after fighting my way through high-ranking Meteor members with help from both Shelly and a newly redeemed Cal, the fights with Shelly are a lot harder, I've got 3 boss fights between me and my shot at the next gym badge. The first is against an overlevel Lucario, but I just countered it. My reward here is an egg that hatches into Andrew the Riolu. The second is Aster, now without a partner. Somehow though, he's gotten much more dangerous without Eclipse, probably because half his team's EV trained this time. I had to think pretty hard about how to approach this fight, and I'll be doing a full commentary since it wasn't without cost. The lead's easy. Roserade outspeeds and one-shots Solrock. Next up though, is Daytime Lycanroc. Eclipse's ace. I use counter from Sudowoodo and bring in Golurk. Here, Dark Orange finally gets sacrificed in the present fight as I've caught myself a bigger bird. Thanks for getting me past Florinia. Magenta claims 2 kills back-to-back with the assistance of a fighting gem, Reveneer walls Midnight Lycanroc, and I eject back into Magenta to finish off Passimian. And now, the first actually challenging fight of the game. It's time to show Blake Whitaker that we aren't taking his treatment of Heather lying down, but this is kinda hard when he's got this monstrosity of a team in a double battle. I tried for a while to find a way to overpower his team, but I just couldn't. Weavile and Starmie were just too fast for anything in my box to outspeed in one shot. So, I took a different approach. Vanillux finally comes out of the box for her first fight, holding a Telluric Seed to double her special attack, but dropping her accuracy. That doesn't matter though, since I click Blizzard and kill both leads right off the bat. That's what I'm talking about, baby! Woo! This allows me to set up Trick Room on the first turn without taking any attacks. It's worth noting at this point that I had to use my Quiet Mid to remove damage ranges on both leads. So now, after my Safish switch into Araquanid on the second turn of Trick Room, I've got a Jolly Nature Trick Room Sweeper alongside a Quiet Nature Mon whose job it was to outspeed stuff on turn 1. However, thanks to Slush Rush and Starmie and Weavile just being embarrassingly fast, Vanillux actually underspeeds everything left on Blake's side, barring the Walrein that has no damage output. What this means is that with support from Araquanid's excellent damage output, +2 Blizzards are able to eviscerate Alolan Sandslash, Weavile, and Starmie before Trick Room expires. 1 Walrein 2v1 later, and it's back to the circus with the knowledge that Agent Tidowin is in fact Terra Pierce. When confronted about this, Terra recites Batman's backstory, then escapes to the one place not corrupted by capitalism, the Oasis from Ready Player One. Let's be honest, I'm sure the entire Kanto region's recreated somewhere in there, especially in the book version. Now, a question I've been waiting to be answered since the start of the run is finally answered. How to handle the Glitch World encounters. As it turns out, every room has an individual Metat location, but some of those locations overlap with ones I've already gotten to. This means I can only get encounters in Mount Moon, Victory Road, and Cerulean Cave. I'm saving Victory Road for the actual endgame split, but I won't get another chance of the other two. So I pick up Bluefire the Zubat, and Viridia the Rhydon. With that out of the way, I finally face a raid boss I can't Metal Burst to death. Gen 1 Mewtwo. I Trick Room to use Facade instead, clearing the way to Terra. This is quite the complicated fight to break down, so I'll explain the field mechanic while I make my preparations. Glitch Field. This is perhaps the second most complicated field effect in the entire game, revolving around Generation 1 mechanics. The physical special split is removed, the type chart is reverted to its Gen 1 state, Dark Steel and Fairy are removed from the type chart entirely and replaced by normal, Dragon hits Dragon neutrally, the faster Pokemon on the field gets a boosted crit rate, Psychic moves are buffed just because Psychic was broken in Gen 1. Most importantly though, the special stat, no matter what, is always the highest raw stat between special attack and special defense, and is used for both. Alright, time for the fight. Terrra starts spouting the Star Wars intro, pulls out a goddamn My Immortal reference, and starts the fight. Nidoking's a simple start. Zangoose outspeeds Inokos. Passent switches in and her Synthetic Seed activates, giving her a defense boost and removing her types. I click Facade because I was pretty stupid when calculating this fight, and Zangoose barely lives the boosted Psychic. I do have a backup plan though. Pyukumuku coming off the bench, whose insane levels of bulk with Toxic and Unaware combine to let him easily stall out Passent, though Passent switches out before the job can be finished. Chestnut returns and actually does his job this time, taking out Excadrill and bringing in Terra's ace. This Assault Vest Garchomp will always be able to fire Draco Meteors at her full power, since it's using her special defense stat that's not being dropped by Draco Meteor, but rather boosted by the vest. I was forced to commit 2 team slots to this Garchomp, an eject button and a Metal Burster. With Garchomp down though, this fight's basically locked up. Green easily deals with Hippowdon, and Blue, with an assist from my other special one Eviolite Julie, cleans up the Quagsire and Palossand left in the back for a surprisingly easy win over Terrra, who just pieces out. In part 15 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I used my new waterfall axis to traverse 3 separate mountains before realizing that every floor of these mountains is a different Madat location. I wisely decide to ignore this, instead picking up Cream the Sneasel, Dark Samus the Feebas, and Cory's Marini, nicknamed Sora, from those 3 mountains. I also catch Backstab the Alolan Grimer in the Water Treatment Center, where the game forces me next. With Titania's help, I traverse my way through the puzzles, occasionally getting stuck or watching Titania stab Team Meteor to literal death, until I reach the source of the pollution. Pulse Swalot, a poison water type with insane bulk, water absorb, absurd levels of healing ability, and actual offensive presence, a rarity in these pulses. I can't take this thing down with direct damage, and he doesn't hit quite hard enough for me to Metal Burst, even discounting the threat of infestation. Instead, I first use Gastro Acid to remove water absorb. Then I eject it to Pyukumuku, who uses Soak to remove his poison typing. This causes Swalot to start taking residual damage, but also lets him be hit by Raymond's Toxic. Finally, I just stall him out with Chansey, leading to an easy victory. The next boss fight in my way is Ace, for the 4th time. Notably, they've ran out of card suits at this point, which doesn't bode well for them. Regardless, Purple opens the fight by taking an easy kill on Roserade. Clink Clank gets beaten easily by Brown, baiting in what is quite obviously Zoroark. Julie breaks the sash with Flamethrower, then uses Ally Switch to bring in Purple for another kill. The actual Metagross comes in and is also beaten easily, this time by Typhlosion. Jay pivots through Delphox, setting Purple up for a kill. Finally, Nidoqueen is EV trained in HP and has a chance to survive Facade, but not after a Flamethrower from Julie. One more Facade and the Water Treatment Center has been saved. But I have finally arrived at what might just be the hardest fight in the game, or rather fights. With Titania and Amaria back in the Fiore Mansion, Team Meteor has begun a siege. With only me, Titania, and a returning Julia and Florinia standing in their way, it's time for me to face, effectively, a 12 vs 32. The Fiore Mansion Gauntlet. First, paired with Florinia, I face some Meteor Aces. Vanillix is by far my best lead into this gauntlet, chaining kills into first Levany with Blizzard, then Machamp with Sheer Cold taking advantage of Nogard. The incoming Golem and Manectric are easy pickings for Brown. With Vileplume on the field, Arcanine is my obvious switch in, getting the kill with Flamethrower as Hippowdon picks up the partner, making this fight a 2v1. The fight is easy from there. Next up are 2 characters with last names in a 12v12. Julia fails to hold back Blake from entering the right window, and Fern joins him in a fight that is definitely harder than the first. Amy again proves her worth, taking 2 kills on Fern within the first 2 turns. Maroon takes out Scizor as Ferrothorn gets frozen, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Walrein has no damage output. Gold takes the field in Crocodile and then takes the kill on Crocodile, and follows up with kills on Mamoswine and Weavile. On Gyarados, though, I have no choice but to hard switch into Chestnut. This leaves me wide open for a Brave Bird from the incoming Decadewey, but I'm able to pivot around it and let Florinia do a lot of the heavy lifting against this pair, though it's ultimately Gold who kills Gyarados. This is, however, finally a 2v1, and one that Florinia can carry for a while, giving me time to finish off Blake for a 2nd time in a row. The last fight, though, is by far the hardest. Solaris, backed up by New World Order Legion. Interesting. Further analysis is needed. Regardless, the aforementioned Gauntlet has been conquered, leaving Almaria to wake up with retrograde amnesia for a purpose which I can only conclude is to torture Titania even more. I genuinely feel sorry for her. Anyway, I once again use a synthetic seed in the big top arena that I'm fighting Selene. Here, I use it to enable the fast sweeper rather than the slow one. In this case, Weavile, who simply outspeeds and one-shots CL's entire team once stealth rocks have been set up. 13 gym badges down, and the circus arc is over. It's about time to head back to Reborn City. In preparation for the next part of this Pokemon Reborn hardcore Nuzlocke, I first head out of the big top and see someone catch Ace red-handed trying to expose Lyn. From context clues, I think this is Terrra, but one thing's for sure. Ace most likely won't be seen again alive. With my newfound access to fly, I first head to the Belrose Mans and dive down for some loot, eventually getting an ID tag from Terrra, a Team Meteor grunt killed by Saphira, whose partner, Sybinn, we've been helping grieve for a while. And now, I finally fly back to Opal Ward. Turns out, Adrian's been working hard. I'm genuinely impressed with what they've done with the city. After exploring for a bit, we finally finish helping Sybinn by giving him Terra's ID tag and breaking the unfortunate news to him that the woman he fell in love with is probably related to him. Thanks for the toxic TM, Sybinn. Have a nice life. After some more exploring, I head to the, as it turns out, unrenovated 7th Street and in search of a move tutor, eventually realize that I forgot to fight an Aqua Gang member required to advance a side quest. After beating that Aqua Gang member easily now that I'm like 10 splits past his point of progression, I return to 7th Street and encounter dashing rogue Corin Rouge, who swipes a Pokemon I've been chasing for a while. I beat some random trainers and head back before buying out this guy's entire stock of received stolen Pokemon. I'll return these to their owner soon. Then, and only then, can I finally get access to the move tutor I've been looking for, tutoring me Knockoff and a few other moves. My next destination is Obsidia Ward, where it's revealed that the department store now gives me access to unlimited pinchberries. We've seen this song and dance before. Another thing I get in Obsidia is a new encounter in Critical Capture. A Ralts that was saved from becoming corrupted data by me making it to the shop on time. He fought so hard to get out alive that I can only name him Tony Convict. We'll see what mega this will become in due time. In Coral Ward, I used 2 of the aforementioned pinchberries, Custap in this case, to defeat Gorobus and Huntail in a field that makes all Swift Swim users ridiculously overpowered. The reward here is Knoom the Poplio, one of the single best starters of all time, with Perish Song in its moveset from the get-go. After that, I unfortunately have to let this girl know that her crush doesn't reciprocate her feelings, but at least I get Incineroar Z Crystal out of it. I can't use it right now, but I will be able to once I'm done with the side quest, and once I have Litten, which might not happen. After getting a ridiculous amount of rewards from pushing boulders around Chrysolia Spring, most notably mints for the 4 best offensive natures in the Overheated Will-O-Wisp TMs, I head to Iolia Valley and pick up the U-Turn TM. At this point, Purple is almost at his full power, switching back and forth between different moves with full impunity while still being able to use HM Fly to get me around the map. The exploration has been widespread so far, but we haven't seen anything yet. Exploring Azurine Lake took me 3 hours in real life on the game's built-in speed up. There's no way I'll be able to cover everything I did here, so here are the highlights. I surf into a cave, realize it's a unique Met location, and repel manipulate for about a 50% chance of Pelipper, which I win. This quote-unquote butterfly will be vital in a bit, you'll see. I've dived to reach some submerged apartments and find Primarina's Z Crystal. I sweep some trainers by clicking Facade, then realize I can get Mudkip in another apartment and that it'll be a valid encounter. Upon further thought, I decide to delay this, as Storm Drain Gastrodon is guaranteed in the same area by fishing with the Oldoron and I don't have a water immunity in my box right now, which is a problem when the Water-type gym leader, Amaria, is on the horizon. I pick up Altaria's Megastone. I Toxic Stole the High King of the Pyukumuku. Finally, I freeze the cave with Blizzard from Vanillux, letting me pick up items I'll most likely never use. That's it for Azurine Lake. But the exploration doesn't stop. My next task is a trading quest involving a quite significant amount of steps, but it ends with me getting Hilda the Clef Key. With the Sanctum Key it's holding, I go back to where Elias's cult was and get some lore, including the backstory of Solaris, Luna's dead name, which I won't show, and Terra playing D&D with the cult? My penultimate objective is to check off my Celestinian Cascade encounter. I repel manipulate during the day to hopefully snag Donphan, but the terrible monster of brain cells, the Ursaring, isn't even close to bad. And now, the final side quest I'll be doing in this point in progression, and this is a doozy. DJ Arclight, a character I've ran into a few times now, tasks me with returning the stolen Pokemon I just bought to their owners, or at least 5 of them. This constitutes dealing with 2 pretty tough battles, the first of which is against Guitarist McCreasy. Against him, I take out 5 of his 6 Pokemon with Swellow, including the physically defensive Facade resist that is Armaldo, and the other by Toxic Stalling Omastar with Chansey. This gets me 1 step away from finishing the quest. As for the other, well, this double battle is trivialized by clicking Facade with both of this run's MVPs, but I'm sent directly into a fight with Mastermind Eustace afterwards, where Swellow just immediately gets another kill on Manectric. Honchkrow Sucker Punches Alakazam, Maroon Wall Scizor, and Green just doesn't care about everything left on Eustace's team. With all 5 stolen Pokemon returned, I return to Arclight and get my prize, the Mega Z-Ring, finally unlocking access to both mechanics. About time too, because it's finally time to get back into the story. In part 16 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I finally remember to fix my overlay. If you're wondering who died, it was Fury the Sawsbuck. He died off screen to a random battle I wasn't expecting. Now for some not random battles that I am expecting. I encounter Ame for the first time since the very beginning of the game, and the two of us, Victoria, Adrian, and DJ Arclight, head to the Devon Corporation building now exposed as a front for Team Meteor. Victoria and I work our way up the building, with me taking out the opposing forces both with Victoria's support and alone until I get zapped and pass out. When we wake up, Lynn takes this opportunity to have some fun by pitting her 4 captives against each other in a mini-tournament. First is me versus Victoria, and I lead with Amplifield Rock Carbink to set up Trick Room. On the next turn, I eject into my newest team member, Ursaring. With a White-Up Shrug off Intimidate and max investment with a Brave Nature, I'm able to sweep Victoria's entire team before Trick Room expires. Then, I solve a puzzle and do the exact same thing to Arclight. I enter the next room and see Ame somehow lose the 1v1 between her Alolan Ninetales and Lynn's Hydreigon. My headcanon is that she used Aurora Beam, forgetting that this was Factory Field and not Starlight Arena. As punishment for this embarrassing performance from the Reborn champion, Lynn decapitates Ame. Interesting fate to give herself insert, Ame. Lynn isn't interested in taking me out quite yet, so she leaves me to fight Zell for the final time instead. This fight provides an interesting challenge. If I want to win Deathless, I basically need to cover 5 team slots with only 4 members. Thankfully, Alolan Muck is able to 1v1 Umbreon, Espeon, and Alakazam, giving me the flexibility I need to pivot through Pulse Magnezone. A levitating Magnezone with considerable bulk and a special attack stat leaving Mega Mewtwo Y in the dust. Nothing short of Charcoal Eruption would have killed this Pulse, but with Magnezone destroyed, Eve and Lumi are finally separated from Zero, presumably finding their way back to their bodies. I defenestrate again. Adrian is next, and I will once again choose to play into their field effect rather than trying to ignore it. My main sweeper for this fight will be Torrent Primarina holding a Mystic Water. To support him, I lead with a Grand Return of Midnight who hasn't been seen in a while. Here though, he's the best lead I've got, as he can outspeed Adrian's Gardevoir and set up Tailwind, blowing the misty terrain away and revealing what lies beneath, Fairy Tail Field. I use 2 eject buttons to get Serena and Primarina on the field with Brain Up, which is my checkmate position. Knoom eviscerates 5/6 of Adrian's team with Field Boosted, Torrent Boosted, Rain Boosted, Mystic Water Boosted, Sparkling Aria, while Lily gets a 6th in range with Nature Power, which turns into Steel-type Secret Sword in the Fairy Tail Field. Another gym down, thanks to the theory crafting efforts of Sybinn. I've given them praise enough during this run, but their help can't be understated. A link to the playlist of the run will be in the description. In part 17 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I begin by donating some dubiously acquired money to fix the underground rail net. There's only one obstacle in my way from completely finishing this task, a mini gauntlet against the Aggron line. Even in the face of quad-effective earthquakes, Reveneer easily sweeps the first fight, sending me into the second, where Knoom sweeps this time. My reward for all of this is the Assault Vest and the Fire MZ. I'd say this is worth it. Now it's time for some story progression. I could have fought Taka in the Water Treatment Center, but since I didn't, it's time to fight him now. My new favorite Klefki counter, Nidoqueen, takes out Taka's lead, and I use 2 eject buttons and an Amplifield Rock Carbink to get Ursaring in position. Ursaring promptly sweeps Taka's entire team, and with him defeated for the final time, he accompanies me into the desert. The Tourmaline Desert is an unbelievably massive map with many different sub-areas, but one jumps out at me first. This game's Mirage Tower, and only because of what it can get there. Maslin, the Honedge. And also Normalium Z, which is actually quite relevant, as 200 base power Breakneck Blitz from Giga Impact is a pretty strong move, especially in the hands of Swellow. Anyway, after dropping Taka off in a town in the middle of the desert, it's finally time for me to finish a quest I started before even leaving the Grand Hall. Once Ursaring and Nidoqueen finish sweeping Corn Rouge, I finally tracked down the Pokemon that was stolen from me all this time ago. One I have not had any opportunity to acquire before this point in the game. Lumi the Magikarp. I've missed you. Those two are far from the only encounters I get in the split. I get Marble the Skarmory, Leslie the Gibble, the Doctor the Dusk Lycanroc, an egg that hatches into Alder the Rowlet, and Xanthe the Ferroseed on my way to the next story development. That development happens just outside of the desert town as I find myself in a fairy tale castle. And I'm not alone, as Lynn has also set out after Titania. I fight my way through Titania's guards, but get knocked out by Lynn and wake up in a tower. I climb out, meet up with Taka, talk with Titania, get a MacGuffin, and get tasked with slaying a dragon. Turbo Blaze means that I have to equip a Focus Sash and Bastiodon to Metal Burst this time, but I manage. Moving forward, I get challenged by Lynn again, but she's stabbed in the back by Titania. Unexpected, but glad to see that it's so. That was Taka. Without any words to express my thoughts after what just happened, I move upward to challenge Titania and come to a realization. I cannot defeat Titania head-on. When buffed by the fairy tale field this fight takes place on, Aegislash will claim at least 1 kill. Scizor will claim at least 1 kill. Excadrill will claim at least 1 kill. And then I have nothing from Empoleon or Klefki. And so, I devised the most evil but simultaneously the greatest gym plan I have ever come up with in my entire life. I lead with Pelipper to override the fight's built-in hail, which matters more for the chip damage than preventing Aurora Veil from Titania's lead Sandslash. I U-turn out for the grand return of Scolipede, who sets up +6 speed with Protect and Substitute, while getting low enough to activate the first Lychee Berry used in this fight. It won't be the last, as I baton pass these boosts to Pyukumuku, who obviously doesn't die to a crit and can now substitute down himself to activate another Lychee Berry. With max defense investment, neither Girafarig nor Lopunny die to a crit from the field-boosted Ironhead, so with more uses of Substitute, Lychee Berry, and Baton Pass, I'm able to pass +4 attack and +6 speed to the ultimate recipient, Gold the Scrafty. Scrafty takes the kill on Sandslash, getting a Moxie boost. With +5 attack and a held Fist Plate, Scrafty secures the kill on Klefki. Aegislash does outplay me and drops my attack, but +5 is still enough to one-shot the incoming Excadrill. Titania does have one more contingency though. Her Excadrill's Magical Seed applies King Shield to her, forcing me to protect and give her the opportunity to activate Sandrush. However, I accounted for this, as at +6 speed, Scrafty has just enough speed investment to outspeed boosted Excadrill by 2 points. From there, Gold Drain punches her way to the greatest victory I've ever seen. That victory is short-lived though, as it's revealed that Lyn survived being stabbed in the back, somehow. Whatever the case, neither of us are interested in fighting at the moment, even though Taka is dead now. Your time will come soon, Lyn. In part 18 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I begin by sending more stolen money to Adrian to rebuild the Obsidia Ward. Afterwards, I run into Sandy, meet her in the Malchus Forest Park, and guillotine this Heracross to finish beating up some workers. Adrian provides some context, and Sandy chooses to ignore that context and instead head to the Water Treatment Center. After I earthquake some Gulpins into oblivion, Adrian stops Sandy from ruining the city again, but before heading to the final step of the side quest, I solve a pipe puzzle to get Alyssa the Goomy. The final thing Sandy does is flood an entire room filled with documents. Oh well, at least I got the Water MZ out of it. With this side quest out of the way, there's nothing to do besides head to the Fiore Mansion again. Amari is in my sights, but as I catch up with her, I see her finishing a conversation with Lyn. I try to talk to her, but she takes a swim before I can challenge her. I chase after her once, and she's pretty insecure over Titania sending me to talk to her instead of going herself. She swims off again, and after tracking her down again, she reveals that even after her instances of amnesia, or perhaps lack thereof, she's figured out that Titania has no romantic feelings for him. The remainder of the second conversation and the third one reveal exactly why Titania stayed. Without her, Amaria's extremely unstable, evidenced by her trying to kill me. That was unexpected. Titania rescues me, and in no uncertain terms, finally breaks up with Amaria. At this point, I know Amaria's been dealing with a very tough situation while being pretty fragile mentally herself, but that doesn't excuse her trying to kill me. And so, I decide to hold nothing back, catching Ryuga the Shellos in Azurine Lake and giving up my opportunity to get Mudkip. It's time to demolish Amaria Fiore once and for all. Amaria leads with Starmie, and I instantly nuke it with the debut of Mega Beedrill, sending out Olive on the free switch. This gives me a Storm Drain boost on the incoming Surf, which is wasted as Kingdra forces me to switch into Kanoom, who easily kills with Moonblast. Swampert comes in, and I get another Storm Drain boost on the field boosted Dive. Amaria throws by bringing the fight back to the surface, the easier field for me to deal with, as Green takes out Kip Kip. I use an eject button to bring in to go back in on Ludicolo, getting some chip on Wishiwashi as a result. Then, I bait another dive for a Storm Drain boost, letting me kill Wishiwashi with +1 Earth Power on the next turn. With only 2 Pokemon left, Amaria sends out Ludicolo, once again giving me an easy switch to Indigo on Giga Drain. Once again, Amaria switches out, bringing out Deliverance to Lapras. And against Deliverance, I have one plan, Perish Song. As Lapras sets up, I let the Perish counter tick down and try to bring in Olive on the penultimate turn, but when executing this fight, I forgot that I was supposed to use Gothitel's eject button before Deliverance came out. As such, Lapras isn't trapped on the final turn of Perish Song. But Amaria doesn't switch out. She lets Deliverance go down and give me a Storm Drain boost in the process, locking her final Pokemon to Giga Drain with a Quad Resist in the back. Indigo finishes off Indiana with Poison Jab, and I avenge my attempted murder. With 2 gym badges remaining, Julia informs me that Calcedon City is under attack. Let perhaps the hardest split of Pokemon Reborn begin. In part 19 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, Hardy and Florinia point me toward what seems to be the cause of everyone in Agate City being asleep. Titania shows up to call Florinia's behavior out, and she doesn't respond. I check back in with 2/3 of the Belrose family on my way to Route 4, and pick up the Rock Climb HM from Hardy. From there, there's a ton of exploring to do with the ability to climb rocks. The first thing I do, though, is donate another chunk of my dubiously acquired funds to Adrian to finally finish my contributions to Reborn City and get the Absolite and Gracium Z out of it. Then, I help the Magma Gang find good places for work and get rewarded with the Choice Band and Choice Specs. Now, for the actual rock climb shenanigans, starting with getting the Poisonium Z from Azurine Island. At Technite Ridge, the HM gives me access to another egg, this time Nox the Jangmo-O. My next prize is found in the Tanzan Depths, an encounter I have delayed for exactly this purpose. By repel manipulating at level 91 with the Onyx line duped, I am guaranteed to catch Tyler the Excadrill. I do some puzzles with Larvitar to get myself some mints, then dig out of the caves. This area is taken already, so Larvitar is off the table. At Iolia Valley, I grab the last material I need to summon Dano at the Sub-7th Sanctum, so I head there immediately and catch Naomi. Then, by climbing to the very top of Ametrine Mountain and then falling all the way down, I get my hands on the Icium Z and some miscellaneous rewards. I'll spare you the details of my journey through Route 4, only that I'd failed to get an encounter earlier. What I can't spare the details of, though, is this robotic Breloom. This is a steel fighting type that retains Technician access and has a BST of 770, with most of that in its bulk and still enough left over for Slacking's attack stat. Nothing short of an Inferno Overdrive from Typhlosion was killing this in one hit, but thankfully, this shed is a unique encounter location, and I get myself Mercury the Ghastly. With the rock climb exploration done though, I find my way to Hardy once again, where we try to break into the glass workstation but are only able to open a small hole into an elevator. Once we're in the elevator, the two of us are ambushed by Bennett, now officially working with Team Meteor, and we get put to sleep. When I wake up, I come across, presumably, Lumi's Glaceon, who helps me traverse the glass workstation with Eve's Espeon. None of the trainers are any challenge whatsoever, and I eventually come across Anna and Noelle, who I promptly wake up. Anna, notably, says that Taka wasn't supposed to die. This information will be analyzed later. Later, because we've arrived. This is perhaps Pokemon Reborn's greatest achievement to date. I won't bother explaining what you're about to see. I'll just walk right in and start the fight. This room contains an unconscious Laura and a very conscious Bennett, Zero, and Pulse Hypno. Zero isn't coping well with losing the voices inside his head, and Bennett is struggling to come to grips with the fact that he isn't the main character. As for me, I'm fighting a hypnotized Kane and Shelly. Thankfully, Typhlosion and Sun is so amazing into this fight that it defies explanation entirely. Seer will be doing nothing besides clicking Eruption for this entire fight, while Guardian uses Flamethrower into Seer to activate Flash Fire. With Charcoal, max special attack EVs, and the double boosts from Sun and Flash Fire, Marowak dies in one hit. Seer spends the rest of the fight clicking Eruption while Guardian chips in however he can, with notable help against Alolan Muck, especially Primarina and Mimikyu. And that's the fight defeated. With this fight over and done with, Shelly is freed from Hypno's influence, and... Lights. Cameras. Make it 50. I'm not coming home. There's no excuse for this. Please be silent. Alright, Luna. Facade breaks Weavel's Focus Sash and never activates it, so Pickpocket is never on the table. Eject button song. That's one. That's two. That's three. That's four. It's five. And that's six. Sucker Punch fails, and you get a free switch into gold. And that's good game, Luna. There's no standing up to us anymore. We will triumph as a family. Last time a man asked me that, he left the arena crying. Sarah, Radimus, you're up. Protect, Sunny Day. This is gonna kill both sides. This is gonna kill everything else. Bisharp, Frostlass. Erupt, Knockoff. This doesn't go for Sucker Punch because it sees the kill in Weavile. Gossip Gardevoir and Bronzong. Erupt and Acid Downpour the Gardevoir. Erupt, knock off the Metagross. Erupt, knock off. Erupt, knock off. Providence, I suspect. What's the second blank? You wanted to feel that control. The end of a means does not make its meaning end. No, this is the only way. This is my purpose. Liar. I will always love you more than she or anyone else ever could. The second blanket period? Wait, what's going on? I don't know what just happened. All I know is that I'm stuck here. I prepare my team for what's to come, and begin to explore the void. I retrace the steps of my journey bit by bit. Along the way, I see Florinia begin to crack. I talk with Anna again. Kiki finally snaps. I see some insight into why Kane ran away. I have a conversation with what I think is actually Kane. He provides some insight into his flirtatious attitude, and bids me to keep going. And so, I leave Kane LaRue for what may be the last time, now much more of a fan of his character than I was at the start of the game. And now, Pulse Hypno. I get to see the excellent Savage Spinout animation and fail to kill Hypno, but Overlord lives to pick up the kill with a follow-up X-Scissor. After talking to Gossip Gardevoir and getting some insight on the Whitakers, Luna finally bails me out and I exit the void. Radimus thankfully fills me in on what happened while I was blacked out. Under Pulse Hypno's control, I managed to defeat first Luna, then Radimus and Sarah simultaneously with only my full team of 6. With no other options coming to her mind, Gossip Gardevoir then decided to create a black hole. And Luna walked in to get me out. Probably while I was fighting Hypno, Bandit genuinely surprised me by redeeming himself, leaving right before I was brought out of the void by Shade of all people. We're then joined by 4 other arrivals. The twins, who are revealed to be Radimus's kids, and the newly restored Eve and Lumi. Radimus also reveals why I called him the reason I'm here. He helped forge the 4 MacGuffins that have been caught up in the struggle for. The 8 of us get the hell out of the glass workstation and prepare to invade Agate City now that the sleeping spell has been broken. Before that, I talk to Eve and get some insight on what it'll be in for soon. Pulse Mime, Pulse Clowitzer, Arc Pulse, and the most significant one for gameplay purposes, Pulse 2, which both removes any Pokemon's free will, and will allow most of the Meteor members I fight in the next split to have maximum EVs in every single stat. That's troubling, But after fighting my way through Agate City, I approach Solaris and am greeted by a tag battle with Hardy against some cultists, which we easily win. Then, though, is something I've been waiting for a while. It's finally time for a no-holds-barred 1v1 against the Team Meteor leader. I lead with the Mulga against a Raptor and Volt Switch out. Scrafty takes some chip from the -1 return, but Leftovers offsets that by a bit and Emolga is able to secure the kill with a second Volt Switch. I get some more Leftovers recovery on the incoming Scizor, then 1v1 him with Maroon. Gyarados is the first Pokemon on Solaris' team that gets countered by physically defensive Pyukumuku, my main carry for this fight, though Solaris switches into Tyranitar before Toxic can take out the Gyarados. Gold one-shots that Tyranitar with Drain Punch, baiting in the Mega Garchomp that does, in fact, have max EVs in every stat. Unfortunately for Solaris, that is still not enough to survive Sub-Zero Slammer from Weavile. Excadrill is Solaris' last threat, and one that Pyukumuku has to clutch up against. I soak to remove Excadrill's steel typing and curb his damage output, recover back up while dodging consecutive crits, and land a Toxic on the mole. From there, it's just a matter of protecting and recovering to stall out the 2 remaining members of Solaris' team, defeating Phoenix Alcantara for what I believe will be the last time. With Solaris defeated, a rift between him and certain other members of Team Meteor finally gets put into the foreground. Solaris' intentions are to preserve the old world, while Paul, Clark, and especially Lynn want to open the door to a new one. With Solaris severely outgunned and his team decimated by my efforts, he retreats, and Samson, CL, and Hardy clear the way for me to chase after Lynn. I end up meeting Lynn underwater, and she decides to flex on me by saying it would take godlike powers to create something out of nothing, and then actually doing it. And then, a Pulse 2 traded Gossip Gardevoir, now devoid of free will, creates another black hole in Lynn's orders, and to take stock of the situation. Lynn has what she's looking for, her and Paul Clark are on the verge of taking over Team Meteor, and Samson is gone. This was a complete failure. But at least another gym badge is in my sights, but not before I hatch Vegeta the Torchic from an egg I get in Calcedon City. As it turns out, this puts me exactly over the threshold to get Dan the Froakie as a reward for Pokédex completion in Agate City. It's finally time to challenge Hardy, and for this fight I lead with Choice Specs Floatzel and Iron Ball Pelipper to underspeed Hardy's Gigalith and set up Rain. The fight devolves into me spamming Surf next to Water Resists, with Lily making a return to deny Accelerock, which with the double field boosts would have killed Floatzel in one hit. 17 badges down, but at this point Amethyst Liddell is done pulling her punches. It's finally time for her to show me the absolute hardest fights this game has to offer. In part 20 of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, Saphira Belrose finally gets the foreground as we get the first hint of what exactly the Doctor did to her. Bennett, who as it turns out is over his Simp era, brings down the barrier barring the protagonist from entering Labrador City, Team Meteor's HQ for the moment and the site of the 2 remaining pulse machines. I enter and find an entire siege in progress. I work my way through the Meteor Aces, who have gotten a lot tougher. Every one of their Pokemon has been treated with Pulse 2, maximizing their EVs in every stat. I'm officially outgunned and have to prep specifically for every single fight. Of particular note is a tag battle with Victoria against Aces Steven and Avril, which is a clear contender for the hardest non-boss trainer in the game. Minimum Speed Pelipper returns to grant me Rain and Tailwind support and give me a serious lead at the beginning of the fight, and my 4 best stall Pokemon and Hydreigon clean up the rest, the majority holding the Shed Shell to play around Gothitelle. Eventually, I work my way to the roof of this building, where I have my final showdown with Zero, this time wielding the most destructive pulse machine of them all. Before then though, Primarina takes down Spiritomb, I use Ditto to check Honchkrow, Julie stalls out Houndoom, Kanoom tags back in to handle Weavile, and Julie also happens to match up quite well into Umbreon. And now, Pulse Clowitzer. This has an added Dragon typing, 252 base speed, 130 base special attack, and Contrary with 3 special attack dropping moves and Origin Pulse. However, despite this Clowitzer's impressive base 252 HP, his defense isn't good enough to survive an outrage from Aqua. With Zero completely crushed, he mentioned something about letting Arceus grow? Again, this information will be noted. What's also noteworthy is the warpath Saphira is on regarding the Doctor, one that is very understandable. With that said, while she certainly has the biggest claim to his life among everyone on the scene, Lynn holds second place in that regard, and she makes her presence felt by taking matters into her own hands with the Doctor. Now when it comes to what Lynn did to the Doctor, I won't be showing the result. I know that there are children in my audience, and while this game is no stranger to uncensored swears and somewhat mature topics, this is a step too far. As such, I will be skipping the final Pulse battle with the comment that it was ridiculously easy. 6 of the 7 Pokemon were Toxic stalled by Chansey and company in a 2v1 setting, and the remaining one was taken out in one hit by Gastrodon. Let's just leave it that the Doctor is dead, and Saphira is absolutely ballistic that she didn't get to kill him herself. Before she can punch anyone though, we're interrupted by the grand return of Terra, who probably gets called out for saying that kind of language in front of children, and responds by setting up a tournament! First up is a tag team round, with me and Cal paired against Luby and Eve. The other major highlight from this round is a grand reunion of some high school friends, where Titania calls all 3 of them out. Julia for being oblivious, Florinia for shutting herself away, and Umbria for obvious reasons. As for our match, it's on the inverse field, which reverses the type chart and has another pretty interesting effect. The Magical Z causes an Omni Boost in exchange for a recharge turn, which gets ignored if you get switched in on the same turn as it activates. Borrowing yet another line from Sybinn, Nox sweeps the entire fight. It helps that Drain Punch smacks Lumi's entire team for an obscene amount of damage while healing Nox, though Cal seriously chipped in with some timely outrage KOs. This easy win leads to Terrra deleting Lumi and Eve's character files. Okay, this genuinely caught me off guard. We get our results. Titania and Floridia won the high school showdown, the Belrose sisters took out Victoria and Shelly, and Hardy and Radimus beat Sarah and Noelle to reach the quarterfinals. Those quarterfinals pit everyone against their tag partner, meaning Cal's my next target. Strike that, Terra's my next target for forcing me to press the enter key through what I think is only a tenth of her Surge X non-new fanfic. Alright, she's going down, but Cal's in my way first. In the pre-tournament conversations, the highlight is once again Titania, who gets Florian to open up just a bit about what happened. Alright, no time for anything else, let's fight Cal. Magmortar's Lava Plume, boosted by 4 separate 1.5 times multipliers, does over half to eviolate Chansey, a first for any special attacker in this run. With Rock set up though, and a free eject, it's go time. The Dragon's Den field is something I do not want to fight in, no matter what, but Hydro Vortex from Dan the Greninja, even weakened by the field, kills Magmortar in one hit while melting the lava and transforming the Dragon's Den into an ordinary cave. With help from Pin and Power Fairy and some eject buttons and U-turn pivots, Dan gets to claim kills on every single one of Cal's team members, barring his Charizard that just dies on entry to double power Stealth Rocks. Alright, let's see who else advanced. Hardy, not much of a surprise, Saphira, no surprise at all, and Floridia? Okay, she's next and we're fighting on the glitch field. Expected outcome Galaxy victory, huh? Well, I'll do my best. In another line mostly borrowed from Sybinn, albeit improved slightly in my opinion, I start by setting up max hazards on the lead Hippowdon, as well as landing a Toxic on her. Floridian switches out before Hippowdon dies, bringing in the main threat of the fight, Ferrothorn. My first answer is Blue, holding a Synthetic Seed to remove his weakness to Grass, live a Giga Drain, and land a Soak on Ferrothorn. This lets Amoonguss land a Toxic and promptly protect on the incoming explosion. Due to the Gen 1 type chart, Sandslash has a quad effective X-Scissor to Oko Amoonguss with, so I switch to Skarmory and spam Roost until Sandslash dies. Floridia's last threat is Tangrowth that gets walled by Blaziken as the Toxic timer ticks down. From there, Amoonguss and Skarmory combined wall the rest of Floridia's team, bringing me to the finals, unsurprisingly, against Saphira. As it turns out, this battle will also be for my 18th and final gym badge, once again on the Dragon's Den field. A lot of conditions have to be met for Weavile to sweep this fight, and this won't be won without bloodshed. I will suffer deaths here. Against Saphira's lead Noivern, I first land a Sub-Zero Slammer with Julie, instantly turning the Dragon's Den into a cave again. I let the waste of an encounter that was Wish the Darmanitan go, then set up rocks with Sash Kecleon, who dies to the poison I set up in Saphira's gym. With those two deaths though, Weavile is in position and sweeps Saphira's entire team with Choice Band Ice Shark. As for what Saphira says afterwards, I think I'm just going to let her talk. The Saphira split is over, but it would be a crime to not include this next fight of this part, as it's the conclusion of this tournament arc. Because, as it turns out, the absolute madlass that is Floridia figured out what's going on with this place, and hacked the system Terra is using to pretend to delete character files to prevent both herself and me from being deleted. She also manages to get Terra back into the real world, or at least as an avatar, temporarily. That, however, doesn't stop Terra from, deleting my fonts, and then battling me. Surf kills Excadrill. Eject button into Reversal from Lucario kills Chansey. Eject button into Sub-Zero Slammer off of Blizzard kills Garchomp. Chansey Toxic Stalls Quagsire. Chansey Toxic Stalls Porygon-Z. Chansey continues to Toxic Stall Quagsire. Aegislash switches in on Endeavor from the Sphere Dawn fan. Chansey finishes off the Toxic Stall. And then, finally, after all this time, Terra drops the facade. For now, my final analysis on Terra Pierce. She overstayed her welcome. She was a fun opponent, though. Regardless, there is only one place to go from here. Victory Road, where Solaris ambushes and tries to kill me but is stopped by Lyn. So, Lyn just killed Solaris. I'm not going to mince words. At this point of the game, I am fully capable of defeating Lyn. She'll be waiting for me at the end of the Reborn League. I just have to make it there. In the Victory Road of this Pokemon Reborn Hardcore Nuzlocke, I have the opportunity to fight the spirits of past champions of the Reborn Online League, but decide to avoid them all since I don't need extra copies of the choice items. This means that, once I'm done with the puzzles involving Blake and Fern trying to shoot me to death, there are only 3 fights remaining, against what remains of Team Meteor after we thrash them in Labrador City. Since I already know what team I'll be bringing to the Elite Four, I am free to sacrifice anything else I bring to these fights. And so, heading into my final battle with Paul Clark, I lead with 2 Pokemon pre-damaged to 1 HP and burned, both holding Custap Berries. Swanna and Golem set up Tailwind and Stealth Rocks respectively, and they both die. Then, I protect with Floatzel as Pelipper chips Manectric with U-turn while sacrificing Girafarig. This lets Floatzel and Araquanid sweep the rest of the fight, with help from Hydro Vortex dousing the Dragon's Den again. Next up is Blake, where I use a one-time resource in the context of this challenge, Splintered Storm Shards. Lycanroc's Z-move has the unique property of destroying every field effect in the game, and this also applies to Pokemon Reborn. I chose to use it here to avoid fighting Blake's tough team on the ice field. Then, I use the combination of Scolipede and Scrafty one last time to sweep Blake's entire team. Finally, after a significant amount of puzzles, is Fern. I go into this fight prepared to sacrifice 5 Pokemon. I end up sacrificing Rhyperior, Chansey, and Arcanine to make it out alive, and Haxorus ends up getting the final kill before the Pokemon League. While this cutscene plays, I'll preview what I'm up against. The Elite Four members have been made explicitly clear throughout the game, though their teams in the fields we'll be fighting in haven't been. First up is Heather, specializing in flying and poison types, and we'll be fighting on the mountain field we've seen before. This field buffs rock and flying moves along with some other effects I'll get to. I also think it's worth mentioning that she's going to lead with Corey's Crobat. Next are Bennett and Laura, who for the time being will be sharing the Elite Four position they've fought over. Specializing in grass and bug types, we will be fighting in Laura's Flower Garden field, which gradually grows and buffs grass and bug types more the more it grows. Third is Elias, specializing in normal and dragon types, fighting on the Holy field we're familiar with. I've called this one of the most exploitable field effects in the game, but Elias will be the one exploiting it this time, using everything I've used against the field in the past, including Nature Power turned into Judgment from Drampa, which 2-shots Blissey. Fourth is our proper introduction to Fantasia Van Hanen, who before a fight will reveal that we're here because of a wish she made to reset the timeline or something. I don't know, but she's the reason we're here, and the Starlight arena she fights in boosts her Psychic and Fairy types, especially her 2 Psychic Steel types that we'll certainly get to. But I told you I knew who I'd be bringing. And so, I'd like to unveil my team. These are the 6 that will beat the game or die trying. Purple, the Swellow. I said this was the best Pokemon in the game earlier, though Magenta usurped his role during most of the early game. Now though, it's Purple's time to shine, fully equipped with every damage boosting option the game has left. Dan, the Greninja. This frog's wide move coverage combined with Protein and an amazing speed tier makes him a good bring into every fight in the league. These first 2 are here to hit fast and hard. Red, the Charizard. I said he was Elite Four viable. The flexibility he offers is almost unmatched. With 2 Mega Evolutions to work with and a surprisingly deep move pool, Red can fill any role he needs to depending on the fight. Violet, the Gliscor. A physically defensive flying type is amazing into this league, and while I do have the more common bring in Skarmory, Gliscor's access to U-turn and better self-healing options with Poison Heal make Violet a better fit for my playstyle. Jay, the Carbink. This was the last Pokemon added to my team. Jay's Dragon immunity, access to Ally Switch, and sturdy eject button utility filled the gaps my team had perfectly. And finally, Evil, the Clefable, the Pokemon this entire team was built around. To the best of my knowledge, only one person has ever beaten the league with Clefable before, and nobody has beaten it with Clefable and without setup moves. But I'm bringing him for one specific reason. And if you've played this game before, you can probably figure out why. At the end of it all, awaits Lynn. As I previously stated, I can easily defeat Lynn, but in order to do that, I need all 6 members of my team alive before I challenge her. I don't think there's much more to say. There's nothing left before the league. And so, for now, I'll say goodbye. It's all you, Galaxy. Good luck. Giggle. When I step on this pad, there's no going back. Beat the Elite Four or die trying. Let's crank this music up. Alright, this Elite Crobat. This is the main complication in this fight. Turn 1, Stealth Rocks. Tailwind on this field sets up Delta Stream that is going to last for the next 5 turns, including turn 2. Gliscor is going to be sitting here for a while. I do not want to see any crits. Two turns are left. Alright. I think we're in the clear. Now, Clefable, this absolute mad lad, lives an effective Choice Band Gravebird crit use throwback. Eject button activates, and I go to Purple to Swellow. If you've seen Nathan Mellon's Elite Four, you know that this is, in fact, a really effective sweeper. The most common strategy is Trick Room Gengar, but I went with a different approach. However, this is not going to be a full sweep. And I'll let you know why when we get to that. Life Orb Facade kills after Cell Drops. The margins are pretty narrow here. The reason why? I do not outspeed Mega Salamence. My speed ID just isn't good enough for this. Salad Berry Greninja is going to be my sweeper of choice here. I have maxed out offenses, nothing in speed. Because that's what I need. Non-Mega Salamence's Intimidate is why I couldn't just leave this from the get-go. I needed to burn the Intimidate on something else, which ended up being Swellow. I have Gumshoe on this moveset, and I hope I get to show you why. That's one down. This is a very polarizing fight. If you don't prepare for this, it is quite difficult. But if you do, it's the easiest fight in the game. Or at least the easiest fight in the game. Tailwind, protect. Fire Pledge, Facade. Whimsicott does not have a priority move that is not nature power, which is going to turn into growth. Oh right, it has the nature power is in fact not going to turn into growth in this field. But Whimsicott went for the kill. Venusaur, Lilligant. I'm obviously targeting Venusaur. This is the reason. Chlorophyll is active. Red outspeeds by 1 point. Facade Lilligant. Fire Pledge, Leavenny. Fire Pledge, Leavenny. Facade Voltron. I cannot believe it just happened. Alright, now the actual fight starts. Elias, Hazel. Snowy Scarf Greninja. This is a line copied directly from Nathan. What comes in next? Dragonite. Godspeed. That's 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. Holy crap! This is actually insane. That was the second biggest throw on this video. Power Gem Protect Trick Room Ally Switch. I don't need the Cyclone Fable anymore. Kangaskhan. This right here is what I've been saving the eject button on J for. With Ditto dead, Choice Band Facade is about to rip through the rest of Elias's team. Although, never mind, Dragonite's still there. Okay. Come along. PP stalling Godspeed. No way Choice Band Brick Break kills me in one hit. Just for kicks, I'm giving this the Mega Boost. That went incredibly well. Please let this work. Asia Van Hanen, you're going down. HP Steel kills this Ninetales. Starmie. I wasn't expecting this to come out so early. It's because I literally outspeed kill. Maybe he doesn't see Protean? Regardless. Who's next? Sylveon. Gotta go with my original plan for this. That was a range. Nothing great. Alright, let's take stock. I have 2 eject buttons left. One of them's sturdy. The other one just got switched to a physically defensive. The other one just got switched to a specially defensive build. For use against the Sylveon that just got. Yeah. Violet dies in 1 hit to beat your match most of the time. Important thing is that I'm gonna run out of eject buttons for what's in the back. Is this seriously going to come down to it? Is this seriously what this comes down to? The almost full month I have spent on this one. I'm going to have to hit a gunk shot. Let's go! Now Nostra. It's not over yet. High roll crit kills Violet. But it's my only play. My crit roll would have killed it. Focus Ash. And that's the Elite Four. So one makes it after all. Through mountain and molehill, you persevere as predictably as ever. Now that you're here, we've no need for words, do we? The others have kept you long enough. What needed to be finished has been. The final pulse machine. That which will open the way to the new world. You may see for yourself, or fail trying. Lynn, get ready. Alright, so 2 things for this fight. Number 1, every opposing Pokemon has max EVs in every stat. Number 2, this is Ame's Ninetales. Let's see what this is. Alright. U-turn. This is going ridiculously well. That is 4 earthquakes. And now the reason I have kept Poison Heal, I've kept Gunk Shot this entire before. Gossip Gardevoir goes down. And by the way, this is Solaris' Garchomp. Dragon Claw. Looks like we're getting the kill. Yes! Samson's combo. Protect. Mystical Fire. This is kind of the worst case scenario, but this is what Jay's here to do. Scarf Garchomp, so... Seems like it's staying in. What's this locking into? Mystical Fire. Protect. Toxic. Ally switch. And now... Oh, was this not it? Deathless Lyn 1. Open Sesame. Ruby Ring. Sapphire Bracelets. Emerald Brooch. Amethyst. Lynn, let's play. I know that's what you're here for. I've been waiting to listen to this for so long. Now, time to explain some mechanics to you. I'm about to exploit an oversight in the game's code. The recharge turn that I'm about to suffer will not go off if the action that triggered the recharge occurs in the middle of the turn, such as switching in off of an eject button, or, I don't know, using recycle. I brought Clefable through the Elite Four for exactly this purpose. I am going all in on this. Clefable is about to sweep Lynn's entire team. With that said, there is, of course, a singular risk here. If Miss Magius gets one crit at this point, Clefable's dead. I've got to stay safe for 2 more turns. One turn between me and victory. Come on, just don't crit. Let's go. Clefable, I see you're unaware. And I raise the base power of this version of Store Power. Store Power does not care about unaware. It's a +0, but that's still enough. Moonblast for the 2 dark types in Lynn's team. And last, Celesteela. I see you, Celesteela. I see that incredibly bulky Ultra Beast that resists Store Power and has max investment in every single one of its stats. I call and I raise Stored Power. Everyone, thanks for the help, even if you mostly weren't talking to me. After all this time, I would like to properly introduce Lindsay Pariah. Abused for years by her father, nearly killed by her mother, left alone and orphaned on the streets of Reborn City. The home she eventually found was the orphanage run by a doctor I will finally name, Dr. Sigmund Connell. She went through a lot in that torture house, and judging from her actions in the orphanage, she was already unstable to begin with. She's one of the worst people who could have possibly gotten the power of Arceus, and since then, she's been trying as hard as she can to get out. Working together with Team Meteor since they had a common goal of opening Cetea Stray. I'm grateful, Lynn. Because of you, I was able to regain control for some brief moments, and now we're face to face as ourselves. Lynn has been through a lot, but unfortunately for her, I'm gonna be a bit of a letdown for her. Because unfortunately for Lynn, she was never the one in control. Okay, before anything else, I need to let you know what we are up against. Pulse Arceus has a base stat total of 975. 255 HP, literally maxed out. 125 in offenses, 155 in defenses, and 160 speed. Its moves are Judgment, which is boosted on the field, Doom Desire, which is boosted by 4 times its power on this field, Dark Pulse, which is boosted on this field, and Moonlight, which heals 75% of Arceus' health. It is also holding the Dark-type Z Crystal, and Black Hole Eclipse gets triple power on this field. Since this did not roll Ghost-type, I'm clicking Endeavor. Moment of truth. I just beat the Pokemon Reborn, Anna Route, Elite Four, and all 3 Lynn fights completely deathless. Thank you so much for watching. Lynn, you're not going to remember any of this. I'll show it to you when I get you out of this place. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to have some serious words with Sin. I originally wasn't planning to do an outro for this video, but I've just finished the post-game, and I realized that I do have a lot to talk about. Right off the bat, this game was an absolute blast to play. The developers did a great job with the map, and Glitch City brought her A-game with the music, along with all the other contributors, including a post-game theme that, let's just say, caused somebody to scream, and that somebody was me. Now, as for the difficulty, this is harder than Renegade Platinum, but not by much. I talked with Terrra about this, and what he told me is that finding the lines is hard, but once you found the lines, they are very consistent and make the game a lot easier. And that is definitely the experience that I had. I got a lot of my strategies from an already existing run on YouTube by Sybinn. As I mentioned, the playlist of his run will be in the description. Although since I recorded the first portion of the script that called it the only run, Dumpy has been putting out a lot of content on monotype Nuzlocke runs. For some further commentary on the difficulty, you get a lot of guaranteed broken encounters, like Swellow, Zangoose, and Chansey. These are all static encounters, along with a bunch of others that you did see during the run. For example, 2/3 of my Elite Four team. I feel like the game's difficulty mainly stems from 3 places in particular. First of all, the field effects. Getting used to them was really fun, and dealing with all the random changes was fun. However, and this is a strength that this game has over Unbound, there's always a way to use the field effect against your opponent. My favorite example of this is sweeping Samson with Nature Power Acrobatics in the Big Top Arena, but there are a lot of other ways that you did see during this run. The second is the raid bosses, most commonly the Pulse Pokemon, which all had really creative designs and stat lines. It was always fun puzzling my way through them, with the exception of probably Swalot. That was my least favorite to plan against. And finally, something that is completely unique to this game. I have not seen any ROM hack or fangame go quite this hard when it comes to back-to-back fights. The Fiore mentioned Gauntlet is a 12 versus 32, and the Glass Gauntlet is a 6 versus 30. It was really, really fun to play through them, and the Glass Gauntlet was probably my favorite fight of the run because of how much I loved cooking that line. And now, my thoughts on the story. This is, by far, the best story I've ever seen in a Pokemon fan game. Infinite Fusion is disqualified, Snakewood and Dark Rising aren't worth mentioning. Insurgence has too many moving parts to focus on the actually pretty good ideas it has for its story, and Unbound takes itself too seriously. Reborn, on the other hand, doesn't really imply that it's going to be a replacement for vanilla Pokemon stories, but rather building on them. I didn't really think it was that edgy, more so a story geared toward older audiences. I do understand its reputation. I mean, a lot of the darker moments are front-loaded, with Corey and Heather coming back-to-back. But, I don't know, I just had a lot of fun hanging out with the characters and learning more about them, especially in the nightclub during the post-game. The best example of this is probably my favorite character, Lynn. We didn't get to see much from her, with me showing every line of dialogue the real Lynn had uncut. But during the post-game, I got to know her a lot better, now that she had completely dropped the facade. As for the other two villains, I liked Solaris. He was an intimidating opponent, and since Lynn wasn't the leader of Team Meteor, he held my attention for the majority of the story. I do like how Lynn, despite being the main villain of the game, is a separate antagonistic entity from Team Meteor. She just joined up with them since they had the common goal to open Cité Stray. As for Paul Clark, codenamed Sirius, he's the worst written character in the game by far, at least in my opinion. I could go on a pretty long rant about Paul Clark, but I don't want this outro to be too long. So for now, I'll just say thanks for watching. This is something pretty different to what I usually put out. I knew from the outset that this would be my biggest project ever. And so, to condense the editing at least somewhat, I decided to emulate Excelblem. If you like Fire Emblem, please check him out, his channel's going to be in the description. Now, if you want the Watsonian explanation for everything that was going on during the video, and some of my more peculiar editing choices, a link to the paste bin will be in the description. It'll continue the quote-unquote story, and it'll also link to some more bonus content if you want that. That said, this has been my longest video ever. See you next time. Bye, guys.